Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you very much for coming out at 10 a.m. on Sunday when you could have been sleeping. Inshallah, we look forward to having more people coming in as the conversation continues. My name is Sayeed, and I am a member of the ISNA Masjid Development Committee, and I'm also the chair of the Women-Friendly Mosque subgroup within the Masjid Development Committee. And this is a really important conversation, I believe, that we are having about the Prophetic Masjid, which is today's session. And yesterday we had a really phenomenal session on the inclusion of women in the mosque, and I'm not sure, by a show of hands, how many people were at yesterday's session? Okay. So, you know, we are at a really critical moment in American history. We all know this. In part, there are many ways to analyze and see what's happening today, and I come to this from a communication perspective, and one of the things that I think is happening at this moment is that we have a contest about whose voices belong in the public square, right? Who is American? What does it mean to speak out and have your voice heard, and who will hear it and who gets to speak? This is the bigger conversation, and at ISNA what we are doing is we are talking about how to build the community from within. And it's very, very crucial that as we navigate things that are going on in the bigger public square, we come to that conversation from a place of strength. The theme of this convention is hope and guidance from the Quran. That is about building our community from inside. We need to be a resilient community. We need to be resilient individuals in order to bring to the greater public conversation an authentic, spiritually inspired Islam and community that has integrity to our faith, right? We need to be strong from within. If we are not strong from within, whatever we offer to the larger discourse will always be fragmented. It will not be spiritually resonant with our faith. So what we're doing here today is really talking about how we build our strength from within. We need to strengthen the internal public square that we have within the Muslim community. And that public square and civic life starts at the masjid. That's the center point. And whatever is going on in our mosques today, the things that are beautiful about that space and the things that are not as beautiful about that space are what we are going to be carrying into the larger public square, right? So we need to look at just as a larger public conversation is about inclusion, whose voices are part of that conversation, who is present in the larger public square, we need to think about who is present in our internal community public square, whose voices are heard, who is present, who is not present. And it starts at the center of our community, which is the mosque. So I hope that we can have a really meaningful conversation today. It's really set up to be one in which we hear from you as much as, you know, and more than we are talking from here to you. So, and to just hear your thoughts and how we move forward. And before we move to that, I'm gonna actually turn the mic over to Dr. Ihsan Bagby. He is the vision behind the ISNA Masjid Development Committee and has done a lot of amazing work over the years, and also I think really helped us by compiling a lot of good data about where mosques are in a variety of different areas, not just limited to women, but also inclusive of, you know, how we include youth, for instance, youth programming, our civic engagement, and other areas. So I'm going to, Dr. Bagby, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. This session is meant to be a discussion session, right? We are dialoguing together. So that's why I'm going to come down here. That's why we asked you to front so we can have a more meaningful discussion instead of hollering, someplace. And our focus is on trying to pull our masjids to the next level. Here's the dilemma we have. Here's the challenge we have. We as a community, as the American Muslim community, has done a great job from really its early decades when Muslims really grew in great numbers starting in the 60s, even though the history of Islam in America goes all the way back to the enslaved Africans that were brought here. But in terms of significant numbers, it really begins in the 60s. And we have a wonderful record of masjid development, of community development. But here's the problem. Most sociologists will say that, yeah, everything is good in the first generation of immigrants and the first generation of converts, but it's subsequent generations where everything starts going downhill. Sociologists do not believe that our community will survive as a healthy, vibrant community, which it is right now. Our masjids are full. We have youth in our masjids. Churches don't have youth. Any Christian, leader that comes to our masjids, they are amazed. Look at all the young people you have in your masjid. Oh my God, how do you do that? Because why? Because no youth go to their church services. The average Christian attendee is something like 56 or something like that. That's the average age. So we're not doing so bad, but everybody thinks, all sociologists think that we're not going to make it past the third generation. So our challenge is to build the foundation of our community, and the foundation of our community are our masajid. What other foundation do we have? Ethnic, social, a third space? That's going to be a foundation for a community? No. The masjid has to be the foundation. The masjid is the place where we gather to connect with Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the foundation of anything we do. Iman and that spirituality, that individual sense of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, commitment to the moral standards, that's individual. That's the first job of any masjid, connecting us as individuals, but also connecting us to one another. That's what our masjids do. So our masjids are going to be vital. And the point is, we need to have our masjids as a foundation, not just for this generation, but maybe even more importantly for the generations to come, for the next generation. And we all know that there is some gap between the young adults who are coming up and our masjids. We need to heal that gap to secure our future. So yesterday we had our session on masjid as sanctuaries for women. And what I said and what I say right now is that we need a movement. People who are going to commit themselves to focus on helping our masjids go to the next level. Go to the next level of development. To ensure that our foundation is solid and that we have masjids that are attractive, inspiring to first this new generation coming along, and inshallah for generations to come. And we're going to do this by, one, establishing a vision based on what? Quran and Sunnah, because that is the basis. That's who we are. Our vision has to be based prestigious organization, the knowledge of how to motivate young adults, knowledge wherever we can find it, right? Even in China, right? Knowledge to help us do a good job. So the combination of those two things. Now, what we are saying, our advocacy in the ISNA Masjid Development Initiative is that our vision, which is kind of our frame of reference, kind of what we're pointing people to, is the model of the Prophetic Masjid. That is what we're trying to achieve. At least this is our approach. And I want to hear, I want you to be thinking about this. The Prophetic Masjid, the Masjid of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's our ideal. The community of the Quran. That is our ideal. So I'm going to ask first, and this is not, it's not off, not some kind of strange thought. This is something nuts and bolts for us. But I want to ask you now, think about it. What are the characteristics of the Prophetic Masjid? You walk into the doors. You're a stranger, right? You're a Bedou. You've heard about this message, right? In Medina, this light coming from Medina, right? And you're interested. You want to join, right? You come to Medina. You walk in the door. What is that experience? What is it like joining that community? What are the characteristics of the Prophetic Masjid? What are the characteristics that we should hold up as a model, a template for our own masjid? And I'm opening it up. That's where we're close enough, so inshallah we don't need mics. If you speak loud enough. Come on. Yes, the sister back here. It should be welcoming. I remember a hadith. In this hadith, it describes a man who was not known, who came into the masjid, the Nabawi, and he was just so poor, just disheveled, and he sat down, and nobody said anything to him. And the Prophet Muhammad got up, and it says that he gave a khutbah. Because a khutbah just means a speech. It doesn't mean the Friday sermon, by the way. In Arabic, it just means a speech, right? He said he got up and gave a speech and scolded the community. How dare you let this man come into your masjid who obviously is in need, and you let him sit down and nobody says anything to him? How dare you? That's the welcoming masjid. What else? Welcoming. Yes, I'm sorry, this brother had your hand up. You should see people smiling. Obviously, that is a characteristic of a welcoming masjid, right? If you think of that man who's all disheveled and obviously in need, are there frowns? Why are you here? Or are there smiles? Welcome. What's wrong, brother? Can we help you, brother? Right? Yes.
He welcomed the non-Muslim, Mushrikeen of Makkah, came to his masjid, Christian of Iran, came to his masjid, no barrier between men and women, no picture.
Christians came to talk about Islam. In fact, some people have trouble with this, but it's the reality. The Prophet Muhammad allowed the time came for their prayers, whatever it was. I guess it's a mass. I guess it's a mass. And he allowed them to do it in the masjid. He was so welcoming. His welcome extended to allowing them to make their prayer. It was their time. So non-Muslims are welcome. No frowns to somebody who comes in dressed like a non-Muslim, obviously not part of the community. No frowns, but no smiles and a welcome. Yes, the sister here.
This is my feeling.
secure, happy.
Yeah, I feel like from all nations, like we are united, together, God, not
All nations, all different people, but still secure, safe. Right. And of course, unlike maybe some of our home countries where almost everybody's the same, here in America, hardly any masjid in America, I think in my own studies, something less than 10% of masjids have only one ethnic group. Less than 10%, I forget what, it's like 8 or 7%, have only one ethnic group. And even still, that ethnic group is large, South Asian. Of course, all the South Asians know there's a lot of differences. And all Arabs know there's a lot of difference between Arabs. So that's even with those broad categories of having one ethnic group. So somebody comes in who does not look like the typical attendee in that masjid. That's our test. If anything, if we think of welcoming, think of the person who comes into your masjid who does not exactly look like most of the people there. That's your test. Sheikh Tamar the Great had another test, and that is her mother, who's a non-Muslim. So she said, the masjid test is my mother welcome? How does she feel in the masjid? And she said 90% of masjids, she would not take her mother to that masjid because she is sure that she would not be welcomed. She would feel kind of marginalized, put off. So, but I think the best test is people who do not look like us. Here, yes. Kid-friendly, spoken genuinely, sincerely from a kid. Right? Because we know, right? So many of the youth in the community of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were empowered. They were given responsibility to lead salah. And of course, one famous of leading the army. Yes.
Tolerance towards those who are not knowing exactly how can do your prayer or be ready, or to respect the place as purity.
Right. Tolerance for people who might not be doing things exactly as we would like them to be. But the first is still a smile and a welcoming. Not that we lower our standards and say anything goes, no. But first, there's an acceptance. Just as we know when the man came in and urinated in the masjid. The Prophet Muhammad didn't slap him upside the head and, no, he spoke to him kindly and everything.
Corrected the Sahaba who objected.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's my own personal experience. Go to a new masjid, and all of a sudden I'm entering the masjid with my husband, and I'm asked to separate from him. No, sister, you cannot come from this route. You have to go from the other route and enter the masjid from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not comfortable. I'm in new environment. It should be friendly towards the women also. The segregation, I do understand that it is, a part of it. But I really believe, because I have grown up as a Muslimah in Toledo, Ohio, where we were welcoming to every gender. They were coming in, welcoming everyone to take their own place where they wanted. We were separated at the time of the prayers, but not at the entrance.
So ISNA's Masjid Development Committee, its advocacy is masjids should retain the characteristic of the Prophetic Masjid, which is there is a separation. But is it such that if a woman walks through the main door, oh, no, sister, you can't come through? Why is that a rule? In other words, yes, there's a sister's entrance, and it's more convenient for sisters to walk through that entrance because that entrance will take them. But is this some kind of, Berlin Wall that, you can't set foot, that there's something wrong? No, there's nothing wrong with, a sister finding her way and she walks through the main door with her husband. I mean, it's not like this is sacred ground and women, or sacred ground for women and a man can't walk through. We maintain separation, though. That, there was no?
He did not make a curtain or wall.
Right. And that's another point. And that's right. And we'll talk about that. So let's move on. We have only an hour. May Allah bless the organizers of these sessions. So, do you agree that using the idea, this vision of the prophetic masjid is a good idea? A sense of, or any problems. And does anybody have a problem with that? That maybe this is not the way to go. So let me ask that first. Are there any sense that this might not be a good way to go? Because we're even though we're starting this process, we can adjust and change. Yes.
First of all, I want you to define prophetic.
Well, the masjid of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the use of the word as an adjective, of course, Masjid Nabawi is an adjective. Nabawi is prophetic. So actually, it's a direct translation of Masjid Nabawi.
Was referring to the status which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to accommodate at this time.
Right.
Not during the history of the development.
Right. Obviously, we're not talking about taking up all the rugs and putting sand down. Right. We're not talking about that. But we're talking about the ideals of the community of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does everybody agree? Yes.
Dr. Bagby, I think the idea that you have is really very, very good. The problem I've been seeing, I've been moving from different places in the country, is that probably people who build masjids do not have that same exact vision.
Yeah, people don't have that vision.
Masjid because they did place to pray, but no long vision like building bigger community or enriching
Right.
the
It is not a vision of our present community. Yeah.
I think that's what we need to communicate with directors of the market or boards are
Yeah.
that, hey,
The brother,
this market costs you a lot of money, but the purpose is just to serve Ramadan and that's it. I think
the brother is simply, to me, pointing out the hill that we have to climb. It's a challenge. But the idea is that this is probably the best way to challenge what we might call old school, old world, cultural ways of thinking of our masjids. Because our masjids back home, for the most part, are not really communities. Our masjid in America and the Prophet's masjid, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was a community. It was people who banded together for a purpose, not people who came just to pray and go. It was not simply a place of prayer. And that's what we're trying to build, not a place of prayer only. Of course, a place of prayer is first. That's the very first thing it is. But it doesn't end there. One more comment, and then we'll move on. Yes?
Do you and ISNA provide training?
Yes. So is there training? Are there services? And yes, we'll talk about that. We are, and in fact, if I could borrow your program, go to the end of it. Again, may Allah bless the people who put together this program, but they put us at the very end after the MENA section. So if you go to your program after the MENA schedule, you see our little Masjid Development Initiative ad, and in it, it has some of our services that we are offering. It has my email there, and we'll talk about these services that we will offer, but here's a quick reference for you in the program after the MENA schedule. Yes, so we visit communities. We'll talk about it. So, and I think I will pass on now the mic to my colleague, Sister Sarah Sayeed, who is the chair of our Masjid Development Initiative is broken up into task forces. So one is Masjid governance, one is Green Masjid. We have other task forces. So we have a task force on the women-friendly masjid, and Sister Sarah Sayeed is the chair of that particular task force, and she'll take the conversation on.
Got it. Yeah, got it.
Do you need it?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk now about, we talked a little bit about, what the prophetic masjid looks like. And we all agree that this model of the prophetic masjid is a beautiful model for us to strive towards, for us to build a vision of, and work towards that vision. So now what we want to talk about is what are the challenges to implementing this vision, broadly speaking. I mean, we talked about a variety of ways in which the masjid can be a prophetic masjid. What are its qualities? So what are some of the challenges that you think, that you see, in your communities to implementing the prophetic masjid, actualizing the vision?
And if I could just interrupt, we passing around a sign-up sheet. So this will put you on our Masjid Development Initiative mailing list. So this is a way to keep informed and also to connect with us. So I'm going to pass one on this side and one on this side. And somebody can sacrifice a pen.
Yeah, there's extras here.
Okay.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges? Yep, go ahead.
I would say number one, lack of knowledge for how the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to be.
Right.
Number two, clash between or domination of cultural elements for the background of people who are coming from different backgrounds. Number three, some fiqhi aspects, which they will tell you women during the Prophet's life sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were different from women of today. That is why we have to make segregation between men and women. But this fiqhi point can be tackled as well, and will not reach to the level to oppose the model of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Inshallah.
I would say
Okay.
cultural, fiqhi, lack of knowledge of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay, so those were three. What are some other? Yeah.
I think that is people looking at when you say prophetic masjid, are we going back into history, or are we looking at the current situation of how Masjid al-Naqvi is being functioning? Because as a woman, when I go to Masjid al-Naqvi and all of a sudden I am treated not very friendly, I am not allowed to go to certain places in the masjid, it really produces sadness in my heart, because I do know that the Prophet did not treat women like that, as we are being treated over there. And so that needs to be clear as to what are we talking about when we are talking about Masjid al-Naqvi.
Okay, so you're saying that we need to clarify whether the vision is about the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conducted himself and ran his mosque different from the way the Prophet's mosque sallallahu alaihi wasallam is operating today. And we need to be clear that we're talking about the vision of his practice when he was alive in his lifetime, how he lived. Okay? Yeah.
I see the biggest challenge being recruiting qualified management and board members and presidents and administrators for the Islamic Center. Because all those things, like, here it is, here's the training. It's available, the knowledge is there. We know how to do it, okay? We can get that, but it's a big, scary thing to come and serve in the masjid as a board member or president or employee. Very scary. It's driving people away.
So one of the challenges is who are the leaders of the mosque? How do we equip them to, create this kind of, or actualize the vision? How do we support them? Yeah, making sure that they're qualified. Yeah. And do you have your hand up? No. Okay, sister. Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention we just opened our mosque that we have been waiting for 12 years in Kansas City, one of the Kansas City mosques. Very excited, finally got permission from city to, we didn't have an elevator, so we had to use the same floor for men and women. And our mosque is considered a very progressive mosque. But the arguments that were going on just within the women about the partition, how strongly some felt there should not be a partition, and the other ladies, again because of cultural issues, were even calling it up to zina for a man. I mean, that's the level of knowledge within the Muslim community. And the fitna that started within the first night of Taraweeh was embarrassing. So the level of arguments that I see a fitna almost starting within our community, even if you bring up the issue. And that to me is the biggest barrier. How do you deal with these people who are from one extreme to the other, you know? Women, I mean, men were not even arguing with us whether they needed a partition or not. It was the fight that was going on among the women about how much they needed to hide. They said if a man looks at you and his prayer is messed up, it's your sin. No sin goes on him. And that's the kind of level of knowledge. How do you even go across those barriers of level of, I don't know, ideologies or what is this? It was a nightmare for us.
So this also came up in yesterday's session. Sometimes the biggest obstacle to change can come from within a particular group. In this case, we're talking about making the masjid more inclusive of women by creating a space in the musalla where women and men pray with women in rows behind men in the way that the Prophet ﷺ prayed in his mosque during his lifetime. But there is resistance among women to that idea because of their education, because of their cultural background. So how do we overcome that? That's a really important challenge. Yeah.
So we have 3 mosques in our area, and I don't know how they're supposed to be run.
Where are you from?
In Ohio.
Ohio, okay.
And I don't know, like, it's like a government, you know, it's kind of like a government. Like, it could be a democracy, it could be a dictatorship, it could be so, you know, we have one that's like an oligarchy. That, you know, that we need to thank them every day for creating that mosque for them and just shut our mouths and be happy that there's a mosque. There's another one that's a dictatorship, and we have a new one. How do we get this new one to say, okay, let's, you know, get the input of the people, or I don't know how Sayyid Muhammad did it. You know, how did he always get the input from the people? Was it a democracy? What was it? You know,
So we don't. I guess to reframe what you're saying, a challenge could be that we don't know how to run our mosques. Like, what is the form of governance, the process of governing the masjid? What does that look like? Okay, yeah.
What I see in my years of being here, our masajid has no organization. We establish, you know, good masajid, good building, but there is no organization. Who's committee for education, committee for youth, committee for women, different program and different schedule to work on. Like imam comes and checks the heater, the other one comes to check the, you know, they interfere with everything. And everything you want to do, there is always this imam who is, in a way, commander of everything, or, you know, checks on everything. And there's no individual responsibility. There is no program. What are we going to teach during this year to this class? Curriculum is not there. And most of the masajid that I have been here, I don't know, 50, 60 years, and with ISNA for 50 years, there is no directorship, some guidelines, you know, if I may say, that not to have the same thing everywhere, obviously, but to have something that is digestible to, you know, the whole community. I can tell you, well, I come from California. We have in my area, like just my hometown, 4 or 5. We know Arab masajid, you know, Pakistani masajid. We have, you know, different type of cultural group. They have their own. So I would say it should be organized. I'm focusing on organization. Organization. I don't think culture should be neglected because that's very a strong factor. We should respect their culture. not adopt it or adjust it, but rather be sure that it's not anti-Islamic, just rejecting somebody who comes who's not Arab in a Pakistani place. You can feel that. Or the newcomers, the converts, really they have no place, I can tell you for sure, and I can confess with right hand.
Yeah.
There are not anybody to receive them, have a special program for them, so that's my opinion.
Right. So organization, how we implement programs, how we design programs, this is all varies across many masjid. There's no standard format, and you're also saying that ideally we want to respect culture, but we don't want to make it a limiting factor, to make it have it be exclude. Yeah, not to dominate. Yeah, so that it excludes people who are different from that culture, right? Okay, good. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the biggest hurdle I see is the lack of women on the board. I'm not talking about the Sisters Committee. Sisters Committee is something that I think was created as an afterthought. I'm talking about the women should be, I mean, I get it, the brothers, you guys do the khutbahs on Fridays, but literally we're running everything else. Like, give us positions where we can help make decisions together. And where we, listen, if we're there, our kids are there. If our kids are there, they're going to stay there. Right now, you see people at Jummah, you see them at Tarawih. Where are they the rest of the year? Your masjids are standing empty. These beautiful masjids you fundraise for all year round, they're standing empty. Bring on women in the leadership positions to help create a more balanced community. And, we see gaps in the masjid because there are no women in the leadership positions.
Okay, so lack of leadership roles for women in the masjid, even though they on a practical level do a lot of the work. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's much more mundane challenge, but I'm thinking of its parking spaces. Masjids are crowded. People want to be there, but then it's not enough space for everyone to be there. And I think that's probably what creates a lot of why people are angry. They can fight for a spot. They can't find a spot inside the masjid. So, they get frustrated. Think of being stuck in traffic. You get frustrated, and I think that's the big thing. We're probably too upset about how we are upset with some of it. But some of the challenges are mundane challenges. We can't find a spot. The AC is not working. It's going to take some time for us to build larger parking spaces. You have to run to find a spot and then fight for it.
Yeah, that's true. There are practical things about getting to the mosque, and parking spaces are important. And I'm from New York City. We don't have any parking. So that's not even a question for us about going to the masjid. Okay, sister in the back, and then you. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
That's the first issue. The second issue, when you have an open area that both sexes are can engage, you do not have the challenge, because every time I go to a massage that the women are separated from the men, you have boys that are 13 years old that their father is right here on the other side and the brother section is quiet, and the 13-year-old, the sister side, they're playing. So there's no manners. Nothing going on, and then they're playing with sisters, and then of course the sisters cannot engage, so they start their own conversations. And every time you go to that masjid, that's what you hear. Sisters keep quiet. Sisters stop talking. Of course they're going to talk. They cannot engage.
Right.
Go to other massages, like I went to San Francisco. I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know who's ever been to that San Francisco masjid in downtown San Francisco. I was there on a work trip, and I went to Juma. It was open. And it was one of the best Jumas that I've ever been to.
Mm-hmm. So knowledge and also people's lack of knowledge about adab and yeah, okay. I forget who else. Oh yes, go ahead and then you, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I'm a convert to Islam 47 years ago.
Mashallah.
I haven't been to a masjid in years. I haven't set foot in a masjid. And of course, most of the Muslims criticize me for that. Oh, you got to go to the masjid. You got to go. You can't stay out of the masjid. And I say to myself, you know what? If you want to change the masajid, stop going to the masajid. Stop donating to the masajid. Send these guys a message. That's what Americans do. If you're not giving me what I'm bargaining for or I'm paying for, I'm going to go somewhere else. And you're not going to get my money. You're not going to get my support. They will get the message because they have bills to pay.
Right.
And, you know, that's one thing. The other thing that is being neglected, I talked to Linda Sarsour yesterday, and I said, you know what, Linda? If I go to the masjid, I'm walking into a very conservative environment.
Mm-hmm.
Women are behind a curtain, they're behind a wall or whatever, they have to go through special entrances. Very conservative environment. I come here to the convention, it's very liberal. We have three, not one, we have three programs here at this convention that are talking about LGBT community.
Mm-hmm.
And do we include them into our fold, or how do we interact with them? And I can see I can see the struggle that ISNA is going through with this issue. And yesterday I attended one of the talks, and Khalid Latif was talking.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about a brother, I guess he's a brother or a sister or whatever, he's transgender.
Mm-hmm.
He was dressed as a woman, he had hijab on, this is in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
but he had stubble,
Mm-hmm.
so people knew he was a guy,
Mm-hmm.
all right? He's telling everybody this story. He went to a masjid, he got thrown out of the masjid. And Khalid Latif was saying, if he comes to my mosque, how can I throw somebody out of my mosque
Mm-hmm.
who's coming there to pray to Allah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I went on the ISNA website to see if, what's the position of ISNA in regards to including the LGBT community in the masjid. There's nothing on it. There's a paper there about women and including women in the activities of the masjid, but there's no position statement when it comes to
Right.
the LGBT community. For me, it's very simple. Okay? I believe Brother Bagby mentioned the hadith about the man that came to the masjid and urinated in the masjid.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Sahaba wanted to throw him out of the masjid. Those are the people we've got in the masjid right now.
Right.
Throw him out of the mosque. That's very ugly.
Mm-hmm.
The way of the Prophet was very beautiful. Let him finish. Settle down. Take it easy. Then he spoke to the man and he explained to him that the masjid is not for this purpose. It's for the purpose of purification and prayer and so forth and so on.
Right.
we seem to be right now, this is why I don't have anything to do with the Muslim community, because we seem to have two camps. One is very liberal, very far to the left. The other one's very far to the right. That's not where I'm at.
Right.
Okay? That's not where I want to be for dunya, and I don't want to be there on the day of judgment.
Right.
I don't want to be among any of these people.
Well, so
And I truly believe that the only thing that's between me and paradise, it's not the Muslim community, if you know what I mean.
yeah. So the polarization of very open-minded people and very closed-minded people is actually a perfect mirror of what our country is looking like today, if you think about it. And this is part of why I started to say at the beginning that healing some of the divides that we have in our community is going to enable us to contribute to a more thriving public square in our country. Because we have all the same challenges that are being negotiated outside in the outer world, outside the doors of the masjid, that are part of the masjid too. So I want to take this one comment from here, and then we're going to move into how do we solve this problem? What can we do? So if you still had a question or a hand up related to what are the challenges, try to reframe it into what we can do together to move towards a better place, and how do we move faster, right? Because that was another issue that came up yesterday, that it takes so long to make change. So how can we push change to happen more quickly, right? So what was your comment?
So just really quick, and similar to the brother's comments, you know, and the masjid that we belong to and are involved with, we see this, the board members, the volunteers, the school teachers that are there on a day-to-day basis, the brothers that are coming to pray, are clearly more involved with the masjid. They get more involved with what's going on, what activities are happening. But then we have this more of a disfranchised group on the outside that aren't involved, that aren't coming, but are, you know, have their concerns and are complaining. But how do you get them into the fold to be part of the solution rather than just being on the outside and complaining? But, you know, again, they're not the ones that are coming. And that what I usually tell them is that you have to start coming first.
Right.
Come first, get involved, and then you can start making changes. But it's hard to get them to initially make that effort to come and get involved with some of the programming.
Right.
So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we see is, and that's where you get the conservative aspect and more progressive aspect of the masjid, that the individuals, the brothers that are coming daily are and the sisters that are running the masjid, are setting the programming, tend to be on the more conservative side. And the progressive Muslims on the periphery aren't involved and tend to be complaining about their voices not being heard.
Right. So I mean, I think the issue is also just connected to how do we learn to speak to and listen to one another, even though we might have very different opinions, different levels of knowledge, different kinds of experiences. How do we make room for one another, you know, in our hearts first and foremost, and then when we actually communicate. So let's move to the section where we're talking about how do we solve this problem? What can we do together to make change? Or as individuals, what can we do to make change? Yeah.
I'm a big, believer in the project, that has been undertaken. I think this is the need of the time. It's very, very important, and we need it to move fast. I think the first, brother who made this comment, about pushback, that's very important. You have three issues. One, is lack of knowledge. The second one, the cultural, issues, and the fifth is the point that, he mentioned. And the sister was very eloquent in talking about the pushback, that is there, from women itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we, like to do? There are, people you see on either side of the spectrum when it comes to faith. And we need to see to somehow, address that. People you see passionately believe that, women, do not have a place in the masjid. There are others you see to believe that, they have, a place and they have a legitimate place. That needs to be addressed. How do we do that? I think, it's lack of knowledge, as you see mentioned. So there has, to be dissemination, of, information, and, right knowledge needs to be brought.
Mm-hmm.
You see, to, how do you do that? These days, we have scholars, like Qadi and people, listen, you see, to the lectures, you see, so on and so forth. They should be brought on board, you see, on this project. And they should talk a lot, you see, about what the Prophetic Masjid should do.
Okay.
The other thing is that we need to deal with clerics, you see, in local seminaries. See, when, people, are on the other side of the spectrum, feel the way, they feel, because they are being indoctrinated, by those seminaries. If you have clerics there, especially coming from Southeast Asia, who are, you see, on the other side of the spectrum. So I think, you see, in the Masjid project, it is extremely important to interact, with them, to have a dialogue with them, to see that we change, you see, the discourse, coming, from here also. So that, how do you, you impart, you see, knowledge. So we'll have to use the local seminaries, where, there has to be a dialogue, with the Masjid project, for the scholars, with the local clerics, whose, work, you see, on, behalf, you see, of the Masjid project.
Okay.
Until and unless, you see, everyone, you see, come on board, there are going to be, people who are on the, other side. And there will be issues, you see, like the issues the sister is mentioning.
Right. Okay. So you identified, I think, both a challenge and a solution that we didn't really talk about earlier, which is who are our clerics, our shuyukh, where are they coming from, and how are they, to what extent are they speaking up about this issue? What are they saying about it? And how do we, and so the solution could partly be to connect with the seminaries in various parts of the world where they're coming from, and I think we also can talk about standardizing some level of knowledge for the imams who are coming here, because they're coming with a variety of different backgrounds and having studied at different schools, and they need to be able to take the lessons that they have in terms of fiqh and practice of Islam and apply it to the American context. And that is a gap that we definitely need to address. And
I was very struck by what the brother said in third row here, and makes me think about restricted giving. So giving, as is very common in nonprofits, with conditions. So instead of giving broadly for unrestricted funds, if you have a particular measure regarding inclusion or programming, to make your gift contingent, either fund that specifically, or even maybe go to the point of making it contingent on other changes, which may help address the problems of it.
so doing something like restricted giving, which, by the way, a lot of nonprofits are run that way. There are unrestricted funds that people give just for use. You've done this on your zakat forms. Just use it for whatever you want, or you give it to a particular program. And you can do that at the masjid as well. Like, we should institute something like that. Okay.
I think you need to also go into communities when you're doing solutions to the problems that we have. And I come from a community, I'm not bragging because we have our big issues going on in our community, but our community is exposed to Islam and to the centers for more than 100 years. And we are inclusive, we are multinational ethnicities, we're different ethnicities under the dome. Yet what I see, and we're very progressive, very, very progressive, where there was no segregation of men and women, they were only partitioned, and yet we had problems. And the problems were based upon you become progressive and you forget the soul. And so how do you reach a balance? And that balance is very, very important to reach. I think the answer to the solution would be to be inclusive. The answer to your solution is we have a masjid where women and men are not separated. Men are in front, children, and then women, but we also have a balcony. So that women who feel that they need to be segregated, they can go upstairs and they can be segregated from the rest. LGBT community, if they are more than welcome to come, we need to think about it. We need to think about how do we accommodate them and where do we accommodate them. Maybe it would be next to the children. Maybe we should form such a thing. Because these are issues of communities which are growing in the United States of America, and we need to work on them because we cannot leave anybody out. We just cannot. And we also need to learn from our interfaith groups. What
Okay.
are they doing? How have they lost? What can we gain from them? So I think it should not be just centered about
Okay, so learn from other communities how they're doing. Take things that are working elsewhere. Sister in the back, yeah. Alaikum salam. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, great. So diversifying the leadership, making sure the leadership itself is inclusive, and creating ways for people to come and give input about how the masjid is run, right? Like through town hall formats. I'm trying to call on people who haven't spoken, so sister in the back and then you. Mm-hmm. Great. Just by a show of hands, how many people in this room know who's on their masjid board? Okay. How many people in this room have women serving on their mosque boards? How many people have youth? How many people have boards that are diverse ethnically? Okay. So, I mean, I think that the show of hands says that there's stuff that's going on at the mosque that is actually positive and we need to do more of, right? So, you had your hand up, brother. Yeah. Alaikum salam.
Visit the masjid in my area. I'm from Houston, and I converted to Islam from Vietnam 20 years ago. So I went to all the boards and stuff. I told them about the wall and stuff. And they would always tell me, you know, that's only in Mecca. We're not Sahaba. You know, we need the wall and stuff. So I did enough of that. I said, well, I'm just gonna start my own masjid. So I went to a place in Houston where there's not a mosque. It's in the Westheimer Galleria area. I live in Clear Lake, so I go 45 minutes to give the khutbah in a place where there's no masjid. And I made it out of the library. So I went to the library, so we prayed at the library conference room. So they said, okay. So I started a Juma in the conference room of a public library. And it works out good because you do dawah, now the Christians know that Muslims come there on Friday to pray and stuff. So it's a good thing. It's free. So that would be my solution. You know, instead of talking to the board for 20 years, you can talk to the board for 20 more years. It might not happen. So you wasted a lot of time, and your kids have grown up, and you could have done fundraising for your own mosque. So I'm just going to fundraise for my own mosque. So if you want to visit the website, it's pinkmosque.org. And I call it Pink Mosque to get more sisters.
Oh, I've seen that on Facebook. So I mean, I think that's one of the things that we see happening is that the people who are frustrated are leaving the masjid and they're also creating what we've called third spaces, right? And long term, what we want to say is it's really great to have spaces where people can go. And at the same time, that doesn't, lessen our responsibility and the burden we have to really reshape the way that our mosques are operating. We must continue to do both of those things, right? People need to feel welcome, and long term, the masjid has to become a thriving and vibrant institution that has a place in American society. Otherwise, we risk going, the vision or the idea that sociologists have based on what they've already seen in the trajectory of other communities is that religion gets watered down, religious institutions matter less over generations, and they predict the same will happen to our community, right? And the way that it is right now, with women not present in the masjid, with converts not having a place in the masjid, with ethnic communities and diversity not having a role, and youth not having a role, we're definitely set on the path the way the sociologists predict, right? So it's up to each of us to try to change that around, right? And we only have about 5 more minutes left of this session. So what I want to, I'm gonna ask you to do, you're proposing solutions, right? So what I want to do in the next 5 minutes is I want to ask you, for the people who are proposing solutions, to make it an I solution. This is what I am going to do when I leave here today, in the next week, in the next months, to change the situation around in my community. So it's about each of us doing something. So what's the solution and how are you going to contribute? A brother here and then you, brother. Because I know you've been patient, sorry.
I'm going to invite Dr. Ihsan Bagby to Nashville, Tennessee.
Inshallah.
Apart from where you are.
Inshallah, great. So invite Dr. Bagby, invite members of the Masjid Development Committee to speak. Yes.
In my own case, I'm going to suggest that when you are giving ideas to the masjid, you mentioned at the beginning about generations coming. The way we did it in our masjid is we make sure that we have in the masjid almost everything that the kids like volleyball, basketball,
Nice.
football, and things like that, so that they'll be attracted. And then when they come, then we get to take care of them. And in case of the brother that I'm sitting with, I've told him I'll talk to him, but I want to talk it out. I think we need somebody on the board that is understanding. I've had a particular problem when I was member of the board before, and this has to do with a lady. The lady has an idea, like he has an idea, and the lady said he doesn't want the person at all. So he came to the masjid, and lo and behold, we had a prayer, and this is the Qibla, and the lady came and stand in between the men. We didn't do anything. There is a brother of mine, we were together on the board. What I told him is, we finished prayer, and then we talked to her. What we first told her is, you see how beautiful you are. You are making my mind to look at you when you are praying. That's not fair. This is how she got convinced that, okay, we need to be at the back. I mean, you can find a good way to talk to somebody, to convince somebody. And those are the type of people we need on the board, not people who are hardcore. This is how it has to be. No, it doesn't have to be like you have to think.
So we're so.
The Quran or the Hadith, as the sister said, they don't know. Explain to them in a gentle way, in a way that they will understand. Give them examples, day in, day out examples, so that they will understand. You have to do.
So we need to have leaders who are able to teach and communicate with people. So again, I want to ask you, please say what you are going to do, okay? Yeah.
I suggest for the City Council of North America to consider the Prophetic Masjid or model one of the main items for the agenda for every meeting of the Council of North America. I was for some time with Dr. Bagby, and I am aware about how the Council of North America addressing, but we need this subject to be one of the main topics which the Council, because it has award, make conferences, make seminars.
Great.
As our brother suggested, some visits.
So you're going to follow up with the Fiqh Council and suggest to them that they should make the topic of the inclusive masjid on their agenda for every meeting. Inshallah. Inshallah. Okay, good. Yeah.
First of all, Dr. Hassan, Dr. Bagby, I think what I'm going to do is to
Mm-hmm.
Have the masjid plan. What is your plan for sustainability?
Okay.
Financial and leadership in the manpower and
Okay.
the other thing that is conflicts are always around the masjid. That's I think is I don't know how is this becoming natural.
It's human.
Yeah, it's part of it. So I was saying what so the thing that masjid plan is a conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm.
A plan, a clear plan for a conflict resolution. If you have conflict in terms of tickets, in terms of this and that, where are we? What are we going to do this?
Great idea. Okay.
And number three thing is like some of the mentioned is in terms of curriculum.
Right.
We have to have our masjid the plan for in 1 year after one Ramadan to the next Ramadan. What is the what are the school that we are going to start?
That's great.
What is the
Yeah.
Let me say a few words.
Okay. That's great. So I think actually can you make your comment super quick? Because we want to wrap up. Okay. Okay, so you're saying we need internal mechanisms to what's the word I'm looking for? It's police ourselves internally, and that we can't discriminate internally either. Okay, so we actually, I'm sorry I have to cut you off because we need to close the session. So you all provided some really good ideas, and before I turn over the mic to Dr. Bagby, I really want to encourage you to think very carefully and thoughtfully about what you personally can do, right? Because this is about each of us taking steps to make change. Change only happens from you, from all of us taking steps to do that. So there are a variety of things we can all do, from education to learning more ourselves, right? So thank you very much for coming today. And Dr. Bagby, please.
And let me just wrap up. There's another session after ours. And let me just underline what Sister Sarah said. We need champions. We need champions in every community. So think of this again as a movement. We're just beginning though. Let's not get, there's all this structure and all this money. No. We're just beginning this process of evolving our masjids. We need champions. One thing is to get on our list. So if you did not fill out the mailing list, they're up here. Please fill it out. It'll put you on the Masjid Development email list. Be a champion in your own community. We are here to network with you and to try to help as much as possible. We will have, inshallah, a series of webinars. You know how many people attend ISNA webinars? Like 10 and 5, right? And embarrassment, right? So we need people. get on the list to know when webinars are going to take place, inshallah, and then promote it. You got to promote it. You're in a movement now, right? And that means promotion. You got to get people interested to get on the webinars, to learn knowledge. That's basically what these webinars, they're going to be giving you, in a sense, knowledge, tools to convince yourselves and others about the worthiness of this effort. Inshallah, we also we have lectures. We have people, I'm willing to come out, inshallah, Sheikh Tamara Gray, Sheikh Omar Suleiman, many others, That's one thing to start the process in your community. Get people to get on webinars, but also bring to your community somebody who will lecture and present an authentic kind of point of view, right? To start the conversation in your community, hopefully convince people. We have a series of workshops developed with ISPU. Let's give a holler out and a shout out and appreciation for Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. If you do not know ISPU, sorry, you should know ISPU. There's information about ISPU. ISPU has teamed with ISNA such that ISPU is doing the research on the friendly masjid, on the inclusive masjid. They've done a wonderful study, and there's a few copies of the study here on creating the welcoming, inclusive, dynamic masjid. Come up, grab a copy, and you can also download it, though. You can download it for free on their website. And they have worked with ISNA to develop this workshop, right? So we want to thank ISPU for all their great help. And then we have consultative services. Oh, everybody is running to get there first. So I'm willing, we have people who are willing to actually come into your community to assess your community, to evaluate your community, and then give solutions. Let's all commit ourselves to seeing this process through. Assalamu alaikum.
I actually have one thing to add, which is we really would love for you to fill out the evaluation forms that you have. They're green forms. So please do complete them. Your input and feedback is really important. We just spent a lot of time talking about how you can get involved, and this is part of that process, so please fill it out. Thank you so much for being here. Assalamu alaikum.
Sister, are you related to Dr. Sayeed?
No.
Okay, the reason I asked because one of his daughters is my daughter's friend, so